A showdown in the halls of the U.S. Capitol on Capitol Hill.
You're not going to talk. You're not going to talk to me. You're not going to talk to me and talk over me.
New York residents
because you don't want to hear what I have to say.
Oh, I'm listening.
So why don't you just keep your mouth shut?
Oh,
because you showed up.
Is that the way to talk?
We're going to have more from that heated exchange coming up. Plus, get a load of this.
Get out of my shop.
Who is California gubernatorial candidate Katie Porter yelling at? You're going to see that full video clip with a couple bleeps in moments. But first, President Trump has done what everyone thought was impossible. He's gotten Israel and Hamas to sign off on the first phase of his Gaza peace plan. Here is the president.
Last night, we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done. We ended the war in Gaza and really, on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. We're going to go to Egypt, where we'll have a signing, an additional signing. We've already had a signing representing me, but we're going to have an official signing.
Middle East correspondent Zach Anders is in Tel Aviv, where it is 11:01 p.m. local time. Zach?
Greta, we are in Hostage Square. We're surrounded by Israelis that are celebrating this moment, and I'm reminded of what it felt like during the heat of this war before the American election between Harris and President Trump. And as you spoke to Israelis, and in fact, there was opinion polling, most Israelis favored President Trump because they thought he could do this. And this is the result that we see tonight. The president, a historic moment, getting Hamas and Israel to reach a peace at this point. Now, we will get into some explanation as to why it may be strained, but I'll get to that in a moment. I want to show you what it feels like here tonight. Every night here has been a solemn occasion for the 2 years that I've been here, but tonight there is a band playing with a former hostage on stage with a guitar. The crowd has been here popping champagne even at some points. The clock on the left, the reminder of how long it's been. 2 years, 2 days, 733 days here. And it's just been such a painful thing for so many people to come to this place, but not tonight. Tonight it feels like a celebration. We were in the Gaza Strip, near the Gaza Strip earlier this afternoon, and reminded that what the IDF told us this morning, they were going to continue to act against Hamas and fire on Hamas targets. And within the last hour, the IDF is still bombing Gaza quite intensely. We have confirmed reports of a 4-story building coming down as a result of the shelling in Gaza. And we saw throughout the day many Gazans reacting to this news in the same way, celebrating, thinking that this was an amazing moment, and also thinking this was a moment that they could go back home. And the IDF saying, no, we have not withdrawn from our positions yet. They were firing tank shells and gunshots into the air, trying to move the crowd back in some areas and prevent them from entering into still IDF-controlled areas of Gaza. But throughout the day, I've been texting with my Gazan sources. One of them in the south of Gaza said, quote, "My heart is overflowing with joy. I can almost feel it flying." That's from a young woman in Gaza. The feeling that we are no longer be displaced, that for the first time in 2 years, our lives might finally find stability. Palestinians loving this moment. Israelis are looking at the prospect of getting their remaining 48 hostages home. And that is something that for the longest time, nobody thought, a lot of people didn't think was entirely possible, thinking that Hamas, the terrorist organization that it is, would always hold on to some remaining hostages. In fact, that's what we've heard throughout the course of this war from American and Israeli commentators, that this just wasn't possible, but somehow it looks like it will be possible. 20 living hostages are set to be returned. I'm being told by our sources in Jerusalem, there's optimism that it might be as soon as Saturday. Specialist units within the IDF are going to be down inside the Gaza Strip to receive these living hostages from the Red Cross. Red Cross convoys are going to drive to wherever Hamas tells them to meet them, pick up the hostages. The Red Cross at that moment won't know who they're picking up, how many they're picking up. They'll bring enough vehicles for every handoff, and then they'll drive to the IDF, helicopters, doctors, specialists waiting, and that will be the moment that they'll finally get to Israeli soil. We do caution that the Israeli Security Cabinet, by all accounts we have been told, is still meeting in Jerusalem for the final approval of this deal. We have not been told whether or not the Security Cabinet has voted on this exactly, but Prime Minister Netanyahu had said that it's not going to be a decision he will make alone, that his cabinet will need to join him in this vote. As we were waiting for this, and we still are, I should say, Greta, a leading prominent figure within this government, Itamar Ben-Gvir. He's the national security minister. He essentially controls all of the police across the state of Israel. He has said that his party will not support this deal, that they will not vote for it. That's 6 votes out of the bloc now. That's not a major threat to getting this passed through the Knesset, but it's an interesting moment to see a leading prominent figure within Israeli politics say this deal is a surrender deal to Hamas, and he said that he's only he won't threaten to collapse Netanyahu's government because he received assurances from Prime Minister Netanyahu earlier today that Hamas will play no role in the future governance of Gaza. Incredible moment. I've been here 2 years. I've never seen anything like this. I've certainly never been in a place like this, Hostage Square, and seen people smiling, happy, joyous. We think we're going to see some living Israelis returning home, and this weekend is going to be must-watch TV. Greta?
Boy, Zach, I was there in that square 2 years ago, and it sure does look a lot different from when I was there 2 years ago. This is very, very good news. Thank you. Zach Andrews in Tel Aviv. Thank you. Florida Senator, member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Rick Scott joins me. Good evening, sir. Tell me your thoughts about this peace deal, this ceasefire.
Well, first off, I think we have to all thank President Trump. Here's an individual that hates war, wants peace. He has busted his butt to bring peace to the Middle East. He did it in his first term. This is historic. Now, it's not over yet. We don't have the hostages back. I don't think any of us really trust Hamas. We haven't gotten the bodies back yet. Hamas has not dropped its, laid down its arms yet. But I think we can all be hopeful right now, and I'm glad people in Israel are actually also hopeful. But because we have a president that has stood with Israel since the day he took office. You have to really admire what the IDF has done, what Prime Minister Netanyahu has done, because he's had to fight the Houthis, the Iranians, the Hezbollah, and Hamas, and the Israelis have done it. And so I'm very hopeful.
You know, Senator, you mentioned the contribution. I think probably President Trump's probably the architect. So I went back to see how some of our other leaders thought about it. I went back and I saw that about an hour ago, former President Barack Obama tweeted a very long tweet, and he talked about, how great it is. He didn't mention President Trump once. Look at that. Look at the tweet is a very long one, and not mention Trump once. And then I went back to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's Twitter feed. She doesn't even mention anything. She talks mainly about Chicago and about the Trump shutdown. And then President Bill Clinton, who was very close to a deal about 1999-2000, he doesn't say anything. This could be the first time since 1948 that we have a huge change in the Middle East. And I hope. They still have time to tweet.
It's really too bad up here. Everything is so partisan up here. But don't we all want peace? I think it's despicable what Hamas does. But don't we want Gazans to live in peace and prosperity? It's better for all of us. I want all the families to get reunited with their loved ones. I wish no one had died. So it's disappointing that leaders can't say President Trump has done something right, because he has. He has busted his butt. There's so many conflicts this year that he has worked hard to make sure they stopped, they didn't escalate. And this is the guy that has done more to help Israel than any of those prior, politicians you talked about.
The one thing that the one member who said that the Israeli who he's going to vote no, he's not going to tumble Netanyahu's government. But what he's worried about is that they're going to release in the deal the next generation of terrorist leaders. And I suppose, there is some truth to that, because the architect of October 7th was a guy named Sinwar, who was locked up as a terrorist for 23 years. He was let out in 2011 in a deal to exchange like this. And then he went on to be the architect of October 7th. So, that even with the exchange, there still will always be a risk. Yeah,
there's going to be a risk, but hopefully the people of Gaza will say they want opportunities just like Israelis want, just like we want. We want opportunities for all of our families. But let's just think what President Trump has done since the day he took office. He's tried to make peace in the Middle East, and think of how he's changed the relationship with Israel with so many of those countries. So I'm optimistic. I'm still, not sure about what Hamas is going to do. But we all have today. We should all be optimistic.
Why do you think President Trump was able to get this far?
I think he's a bulldog. I don't think there's any question. Anybody that deals with President Trump knows he is a bulldog for whatever he wants. He wanted peace. He wanted the hostages back. He's a bulldog. And I think the other thing is I think Hamas finally come to the conclusion that this is the first president that no ifs, ands, or buts. He was going to stand with Israel, and they've watched what Israel's done to destroy the Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran, and all the other Hamas fighters, and Trump hasn't stopped them. So I think that's a big deal.
Senator Rick Scott from the great state of Florida. Thank you, sir.
Hi, Greta. Have a good day.
Thank you. Coming up, President Trump is exhausting reporters. Find out how when the record continues.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Hi, TV Genie.
What do you want?
I wish I could find my shows easier.
I wish my primetime TV was automatically recorded.
I wish I could record more.
Well, I can't do any of those things. So here, I swapped your outfits.
Switch to Dish. Get voice control, automatic primetime recording, and more recording power.
You're welcome.
Switching from DirecTV satellite to Dish can save you over $300 in your first year.
We should get Dish.
DR is the leader in leaf and lawn vacuums. The DR rides behind your lawn tractor and inhales everything. Unloading takes just seconds. No lawn tractor? No problem. Our new Pilot XT models fill disposable bags for curbside pickup.
Shop the sale today. All DR leaf and lawn vacs are now on sale and free shipping is in effect. Hurry, this offer won't last.
Stop buying generic Viagra if you're over 60. You qualify for 9 tablets of 100 milligram generic Viagra for just $7 with free shipping from Friday Plans. I thought it was a scam, but I tried it and I'm so glad I did. All you need to do is go to FridayPlansVIP.com and fill out a quick online form. It took me under 2 minutes, and their licensed doctor approved me for a free prescription the same day. They even included free 3-day discreet shipping right to my door. I tried my first tablet, and within 30 minutes, it was working as well as the name brand. My wife can't stop smiling, and I feel like I'm in my 20s again. Go to FridayPlansVIP.com and see for yourself. I still can't believe I got 9 tablets of 100 milligrams generic Viagra for just $7. It's the best $7 I've spent in years. Don't miss out on this deal. My only regret is waiting so long. Go to FridayPlansVIP.com now.
Ask any journalist. It is hard to cover President Trump because he never stops. He's exhausting. Just think about the last 24 hours. The president announced Israel and the terrorist group Hamas have agreed to the first phase of a peace deal. That was not an easy or short project. That's a nonstop project. And then today, President Trump held his 8th cabinet meeting at the White House since January. And to give you some context, in the first full year, not just 10 months into October, the first full year, President Biden held only 3 to President Trump's 8. And then following today's cabinet meeting, the president hosted the president of Finland, Alexander Stubb, and Finland's Prime Minister, Petteri Orpo, at the White House. And Finland, of course, is one of the newest members of NATO. Finland joined April 4, 2023, and then a year later, on March 7, 2024, Sweden joined, making NATO's membership a total of 32 nations. White House correspondent Mike Carter is probably exhausted covering this president, because I am sitting here in the studio. Mike?
He doesn't sleep, Greta. Well, in his first meeting with a world leader since the announcement last night that Hamas had accepted phase 1 of Trump's 20-point peace plan today, the president of the United States greeting Finland's president Alexander Stubb for bilateral talks here at the White House to discuss trade, defense policy, and of course, the war in Ukraine. Today, Finland's president congratulating President Trump on his successful Middle East peace plan.
I want to congratulate you for what we have seen in the past 24 hours in Gaza.
Thank you.
I think it's a historic deal. I went through the 20 points. It's almost like the best of record. You really see all the key elements. And if someone would have said a few weeks back that you and your team are able to push us to a position where there will be a ceasefire, an exchange of prisoners, hostages, and then a pullback, I would not have believed it.
In his cabinet meeting today, President Trump crediting the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities over the summer for opening the pathway for this first phase of this Israel-Hamas peace agreement, saying that without it, there would be a big dark cloud over this day. The president saying today the whole world has come together over the plan orchestrated in large part by the Trump administration.
You know, last night we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done. We ended the war in Gaza and really, on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. And that'll be a day of joy. I'm going to try and make a trip over. We're going to go to Egypt, where we'll have a signing, an additional signing. We've already had a signing representing me.
And the president also invited to speak in front of Israel's government, the parliament on Sunday in Tel Aviv. President Trump also today was asked, well, this is the phase 1 of the peace plan. 48 remaining hostages, 20 of whom still be believed to be alive, returning home as soon as Monday, says the president. Israel releasing 250 Palestinians serving life sentences and 1,700 Palestinians detained by the IDF since October 7th. Aid now flowing into Gaza in the coming hours.
One day, perhaps the entire story will be told about the events of yesterday, but suffice it to say, it's not an exaggeration that none of it would have been possible without the President of the United States being involved.
And tomorrow, Greta, tomorrow the Nobel Peace Prize Committee will announce their honoree. It's hard to imagine it would be anyone other than President Trump for this nomination.
I don't know. The Nobel Peace Prize has lost a little bit of its reputation, its committee, so we'll see, you know, how they pick somebody. Anyway, Mike Carter at the White House, thank you. And tomorrow, President Trump also heads 9 miles from the White House to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, which is in Bethesda, Maryland. For a little history, President Trump was hospitalized at Walter Reed during his first term from October 2nd to October 5th, 2020. And despite his sickness at the time for COVID, he took a short motorcade ride to wave at his supporters gathered outside. At the time, he was very, very sick with COVID, but obviously he has recovered, and here we are today. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt released a statement about the president's visit that's scheduled for tomorrow. It reads, quote, on Friday morning, President Trump will visit Walter Reed Medical Center for a planned meeting and remarks with the troops. While there, President Trump will stop by for his routine yearly checkup. He will then return to the White House. President Trump is considering going to the Middle East shortly thereafter, end quote. Okay, now you know why I say he's exhausting to follow. Coming up, gloves off, it's getting fierce on the Hill. Republican Congressman Mike Lawler and Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries got into a shouting match. We have it on tape. You'll see it when the record continues.
Let me ask you a question. Did you get permission from your boss?
Why don't we sign on right now?
Did your boss, Donald Trump?
You can easily extend
the
ACA right now.
Did your boss, Donald Trump, give you permission? Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
Hi, I'm Katrina Ziff. I've worked on the red carpet, I've worked at Vogue magazine, and now I work at Newsmax, and I couldn't be happier because it's all about bringing the most important stories in the world directly to you.
My employees and I want to thank all of you at Newsmax for your continued support of MyPillow. It's because of you and the grace of God that we're making it through. And to thank you, we're bringing you the best offers ever. Get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, now only $29.88. Our My Towels are finally back in stock. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. Towels that actually work. What a concept. And for the first time and the only time ever, you're going to get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code when you order today. Inventory for these offers are extremely limited, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Jesus Christ came to take the muck out of you. Let me send you this free book, The Everlasting Gospel of Christ. This is absolutely free. We simply want you to know Jesus Christ.
My allergic itch was a growing problem for me and my human. Then the vet gave me Apoquel. It works at the source and starts relieving itch in as fast as 4 hours.
May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations, serious infections, or pre-existing cancers. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs under 12 months of age with serious infections or in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs.
Big or little itch, ask for Apoquel. Apoquel.
The gold standard. Reassuring. Solid. Steadfast. In these uncertain times, owning a 1-ounce Gold Eagle can be the difference between feeling secure or feeling unprepared. Obtain your strong and steady lifeline at the best price in the country from the most trusted source, Global Coin. Call 844-595-9599 now to add a 1-ounce Gold Eagle to your safety net.
How does the world's most trusted dog expert keep his own dog so healthy?
Hi, I am Cesar Milan. You may know me as the original host of the Dog Whisper series. In my 20 years rehabilitating dogs on television, I've seen too many struggle with health problems that no amount of training could fix. Then I discovered it wasn't the dog, it was their food.
Most store-bought dog food is processed at extreme temperatures that can destroy vital nutrients.
Fortunately, I found veterinarian Dr. Marty's anti-kibble breakthrough. Nature's Blend is uniquely designed to help make your dog's best years last even longer.
Unlike kibble, Nature's Blend is packed with premium whole foods that are freeze-dried, locking in vital nutrients.
I saw remarkable improvements in my dogs. Within weeks, my pack is healthier than ever.
Dr. Marty is trusted by over 1 million pet parents, with 5-star reviews pouring in daily.
So stop kibbling and start feeding your best friend the food I trust for my pack, Nature's Blend.
Try Dr. Marty Nature's Blend risk-free for 90 days. Plus, get a free gift when you call or visit drmartypets.com/Caesar. That's drmartypets.com/Caesar.
Right now, half our civilian federal employees are on furlough. Real, vital, critical services that American citizens in all categories rely upon are halted. And when we talk specifically about our military, right now service members, military personnel at home and abroad, as well as Border Patrol agents, TSA, air traffic controllers, they're all working without pay.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson talking about the impact of the government shutdown as we near day 10 with no end in sight. No one in the Senate is budging, at least not yet. As it stands, Republicans want a short-term continuing resolution to resume funding the government at current levels, but that resolution and that funding would expire on November 21st. Democrats, on the other hand, are demanding more than $1 trillion in additional health care, including an extension of enhanced subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. The Senate has now voted 7 times since October 1st to end the shutdown. Each vote has failed. Speaker Johnson says the House will remain in recess until the Senate can reach an agreement. The frustration is growing as both sides dig in. Watch this.
Don't come with this phony
These are bills.
No.
These are bills. They're not phony.
It's
They're
not
real
a bill
bills.
that Republicans are even prepared to bring to the floor.
There's 11 Republicans on it. There's 4 Democrats. It's a bipartisan bill to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies. If you believe in it so
do you
so
understand
much,
math?
why won't you sign on to it?
Do you understand math?
You could get your whole conference to
You
sign
have
on
t-
today.
there are 220
Your whole conference could sign on to this.
There are 220 Republicans
Right.
in the House right now.
You have
You come to a
215
bill
Democrats.
with 11?
You have 215
Is that right?
Democrats. Well, how many votes does it take in the
Yeah,
House?
are you-
218.
Are you mathematically challenged, bro?
No, I think you are. You have 215 Democrats. You could all sign on to this
Do me
today
a
with
favor.
11 Republicans.
Do
It'd
me
be
a
great.
favor.
It'd be
I've
great.
indulged you. I've given you your 15
You
minutes
haven't,
of
you
fame.
haven't answered any of the questions.
You're a
but
complete and total embarrassment.
Yeah.
You're embarrassing yourself in your district right now, and you're going down to defeat next
I know.
year.
Good luck.
Sooner or later, they'll graduate from the 7th grade. And if the government does not reopen by October 15th, active duty military service members will miss a paycheck. Former Republican Senator from Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum, joins me. Come on, you have a thought on this, I know.
Well, first off, they both embarrassed themselves, in my opinion. I mean, Hakeem Jeffries can't add. Congressman Lawler was saying, look, there's a bill that 11 Republicans signed off on, and the problem, and that along with the Democrats would actually be able to pass the House. That's if the Speaker brought it up, and the bottom line is he wouldn't. The Speaker's not going to let that bill come to the floor, and so he's going to stay in recess until the Senate does something. So they both were sort of playing games, and I think that's sort of where we are right now. The reality is that the Democrats are making hypocrites look bad because they are the biggest hypocrites in the history of politics, because for 40 years, ever since shutdowns became a thing, the Democrats have always uniformly taken the position that you don't negotiate on a continuing resolution. You simply pass it. You extend the time for the government to stay open, and you work out your differences in the final bill. You don't do half measures on a continuing resolution. And they've always said that, and now they're on the other. They're wearing the other shoe, and they're being complete hypocrites.
All right, so it's a stalemate, right? You agree? Tell me what happens to this. Suppose we now have had 7 votes. Suppose we get up to, I don't know, 15 or 16. It's now November 15th. It's still in a shutdown, but they have a vote. And suddenly on the 16th of November, we have the continuing resolution till the 21st, which would be about 6 days. Now, what happens on the 21st? Are they going to be ready on the 21st?
Well, if you had a continuing resolution 21st, you could back pay all the people, and you could.
I know, but what
restart
happens
everything.
on the 21st?
21st, you would
have another shutdown.
You would have another shutdown if they actually voted this particular bill. I don't think. My guess is that as this goes on and gets closer to the 21st, they probably redo another bill in the House and send it over to the Senate.
Here's another thing I don't get. Every time in law school or in the courtroom or in high school, you have a date when things were due. Papers, everything, dates are due. Everyone who is in Congress knows that September 30th is the end of the funding. Yet since about 1990, they've never hit that deadline. If I showed up 10 minutes late for this show, I'd lose my job. Nobody ever does his job on time with this funding.
Leverage. That's it.
What do you mean?
Everything happens in Congress when you have leverage, when you have a deadline.
Apparently it's not working. They had a deadline, September 30th. It didn't work.
And so they're using the leverage that the government will close to get something they want. That's what Republicans did repeatedly for the last couple of decades, and now Democrats are doing it when they don't control. Does it work? It hasn't historically worked well for the party that is shutting down the government, that is asking for more. In the end, they usually don't get what they're asking for, but it's a political maneuver that they think benefits them. And Democrats took a big hit with their base earlier this year, I should say, when Schumer caved on the continuing resolution, and their base was very upset, and they wanted them to fight. So it's really interesting because everyone says, oh, they're just playing politics in Washington. No, this is politics, base politics. This is people across America who want the Democrats in Congress to do this, not the other way around.
We'll see what happens. Anyway, Senator Rick Santorum in the great state of Pennsylvania.
Great state of Pennsylvania.
One of the most exciting races this year is in New Jersey. In fact, it's next month. Right now, candidates in the New Jersey governor's race are neck and neck. Democrat Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli had a bitter exchange in the final debate. Sherrill accused Ciattarelli of profiting from the opioid crisis through his ties to the pharmaceutical industry. Ciattarelli shot back, saying Sherrill broke the law by failing to disclose millions in stock trades as a member of Congress. He also took a shot at Sherrill's military record. He accused the Democrat of covering up her involvement in a cheating scandal at the Naval Academy.
I got to walk at my college graduation.
And I'm so glad that you then went on to kill tens of thousands of people in New Jersey, including children,
and I never broke the law.
as they got. You just broke the law. In fact, your campaign right now is under federal investigation for how you illegally got access to my records. So to say that right now, and I think you're trying to divert from the fact that you killed tens of thousands of people by printing your misinformation, your propaganda, and then getting paid to develop an app so that people could more easily get the opioids once they were addicted.
By the way, during that soundbite, Senator Santorum says it's Ciattarelli, so I've been corrected. Anyway, so this year, New Jersey and Virginia, they're the only two states holding governor's races. Both New Jersey and Virginia races are considered a bellwether of what to expect in next year's midterms. Coming up, a video dated 2021 just released, and it has a California governor's candidate, Katie Porter, in hot water, very hot water.
Get out of my shop.
Not a nice lady.
That video, when the record continues.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax. Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide. Real news for real people.
October 7th, 1,200 killed in Israel. 46 Americans. 250 taken hostage.
What happened here is a large-scale invasion. They entered Israel to kill anyone that they can.
Just shooting everyone like in a duck range.
We come back to the car, and there's 2 baby seats with hundreds of bullets.
And then she texted me, "I love you, you're everything." And she stopped answering.
In my kibbutz, we had a baby 9 months old that they murdered.
Hamas murdered my sister. When I buried her, I buried a part of myself.
I think Hamas would do it again. Raping women, beheading babies, killing innocent people.
As long as Hamas is over there, we're not gonna have peace no matter what we're gonna do.
Let's stand for freedom, not terror.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Used daily, dermatologist-recommended Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream can help restore your skin's natural barrier and reduce the appearance of bruises. If you have mature skin and bruise easily, get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle and get back to having way too much fun.
I was tired of sitting on the sidelines. Now, thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
Really?
Really. Single Care crushes the cost of my prescription, almost as much as I'm crushing Chad.
Unbelievable. See why more people are saving with Single Care. Common side effects include shockingly lower prices, excessive fist bumps, and humbling guys named Chad.
I am Mr. H, owner of Immuno 150, possibly the most complete and best nutritional supplement in the world, bar none. Now, it has propelled me to 91 years of age, and my wife Shirley to 82. Both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, doing everything we did many years ago. All because of Immuno 150, and it can do the very same thing for you. Try it for 90 days so you can experience the difference it can make in your life. Nothing on the market can compete with the way we blend 70 plant-derived colloidal minerals with 80 very carefully selected nutrients. You'll be surprised if you take the recommended dose of Immuno 150 for 3 months. Place your order now so that you can be with us many years from now. Thank you and God bless.
At Balsam Hill, we're crafting joy early this year. For a limited time during Balsam Hill Days, save up to 40% off plus free shipping on our beautifully designed lifelike Christmas trees, now made with more sustainable materials. Find your holiday spirit at balsamhill.com.
President Trump said he was going to do this, and he did. Yesterday evening, at the president's direction, 200 Texas National Guard troops began operations in Chicago, Illinois, alongside 300 Illinois National Guard members. The state of Illinois and the city of Chicago have sued the Trump administration, calling the deployment unconstitutional and politically motivated. They are requesting a temporary block on the deployment of the National Guard in Chicago. The Trump administration says the troops are needed to protect federal agents amid ongoing protests and to protect Chicago residents. Today, United States District Court Judge April Perry heard arguments from both sides. Her decision expected to come down any minute. Chicago Alderman Raymond Lopez joins me. Nice to see you again, sir.
Greta, always thank you for having me.
So tell me what your thoughts are on this. I mean, we're talking a whole lot about it in the national media, but is it big news in Chicago, or are people just going about their business?
Well, I think people in Chicago would love to go about their business, but this is big news because, in fact, we have seen time and time again where the junior Antifa, the paid antagonists and protesters, continue to attack ICE agents here in the city of Chicago. They are chasing them through the neighborhoods. We know we have the cartels coordinating with local gangs to try to intimidate and stop ICE enforcement in our neighborhoods. And our police, as we saw this weekend, are being told to stand down whenever ICE agents get into trouble with local community antagonists. You know, someone has to protect federal law enforcement officials here doing their job, and if the National Guard has to be the ones, then so be it. It's basically become a self-fulfilling prophecy, to be perfectly honest with you.
Is it the mayor? Is it the mayor that's telling the police to stand down and protecting the ICE agents?
We saw this weekend where ICE agents were ambushed in the neighborhoods neighborhood of Brighton Park, and an order came over the radio not to assist by our chief of patrols, as well as by the local district.
Under what theory? Under what theory? I mean, you're supposed to. I mean, firemen go into burning houses all the time, risk their lives, and they don't say what's your religion, what's your sex, you know, where'd you grow up. They don't ask anything. I mean, police are supposed to do the same.
This is the hyper progressive welcoming city ordinance policy in full effect here. And we're seeing where the mayor does not want to look like he's giving any cover or protection to immigration enforcement officials, even at their own risk of their own lives. And it's unfortunate, it's disgusting, and it's a violation of the oaths that every officer takes when they put on that badge.
What are the police saying, the rank and file police? I mean, that's sort of their job to protect everybody, even people they might not agree with or like.
Well, as you said, Greta, you know, first responders don't care what your religion is, don't care about your political beliefs. They're there to protect property, to protect person and the sanctity of life, according to the police department. And they are just as outraged because they see ICE agents as another form of law enforcement. And all of law enforcement should be able to come to the aid of another if you are being ambushed, attacked, or antagonized in this manner. And to be perfectly clear, you know, our mayor, our governor, are quietly inciting individuals to get to this point, to ratchet up the anger, the fear, the animosity, the hatred, and the vitriol, so that people are taking these steps to attack our federal partners. Even though we say that we want peaceful protests, that's exactly the opposite of what Governor Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson want to see in the streets right now.
Chicago Alderman Raymond Lopez, thank you, sir, and good luck.
Thank you, Greta.
Well, this can't be good if you're running for office, especially a high one like governor. Former member of Congress Katie Porter wants to be California's next governor, but right now she's in hot water over a newly released video from back in July of 2021. The video was obtained by Politico, and it shows an online conversation between then Congresswoman Katie Porter and then Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. Several minutes into the online conversation, Porter's staffer interjected to correct something her then boss said. Here is that exchange.
That we're going to lose more than 500,000 Californians dying prematurely to air pollution and other problems, and the state could lose. Get out of my.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles. It's that if we don't meet the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shop before that. Stay out of my shot. Okay, I'm going to start again with electric vehicles saving us money.
Host of CPAC Now, America Uncanceled, former White House Strategic Senior Advisor and star of The Right Squad right here on Newsmax at 10 p.m. Mercedes Schlapp joins you. Do you know why I wanted you back here?
Okay.
I'll tell you why. You want to know why?
Had so much fun yesterday?
No, I need a do-over after yesterday.
Really?
Because yesterday I was on Katie Porter's side with the journalists. I've now seen that tape. I need a do-over.
Okay, Greta, go. Give me your case. Come on, I want to hear
no,
it.
it's just, no, she's out of control. She's out of, I admit it. I thought the journalists were obnoxious. The journalists could have been obnoxious anyway, but I think that there's a far deeper problem that this candidate has. Obviously, it's back from 2021, and I am known to lose my temper on occasion, but I'm not running for office.
I don't think I've ever heard you ever talk to any staffer like that. That is outrageous.
That's because I'm afraid of them.
Well, look. Katie Porter, she does not have the temperament to be governor of California. It is very clear. This is not just one instance. There are several instances of her bullying her staff. And I think we're going to start seeing more of this. I mean, this could be disgruntled staffers coming out and saying, hey, I've got the evidence. And I just think it shows a pattern of her inability to control herself, basically.
Is that a problem? That sounds like a problem for California. Is it, or is it because it's, I think, the 5th largest economy in the world or something, California, or something number like that? Is it a problem for us, the rest of the country, if Katie Porter is the governor and she's got a short temper?
I got to tell you, California has been a problem for so long. I mean, they've gone from one Democrat governor to the next. I think Gavin Newsom has shown that he's trying his best to upstage President Trump with his, what I would say, Trumpian-like tweets that he's put out, or ex-posts that he's put out. And I think that it just shows the dysfunctionality of California politics, where there is, the way they have set up their election system, the way that they hone in on ballot harvesting, it is very difficult for Republicans to win in those districts. Obviously, Gavin Newsom threatening to redistrict. It's going to be one of the ballot referendums, and we'll see what happens in November. But it is a problem for California. They keep going further in the wrong direction.
Well, it seems to me that if the Republicans, I don't know what the rules are on sort of crossing over, whether you have to register, but if she were the nominee for the Democratic Party, it'd probably be a better situation for a Republican running against her, because she's got these, now that I've become a believer,
right,
after yesterday, she'd be probably an easier candidate to pick off for a Republican.
It could be, but I got to tell you, the Democrat machinery, the amount of money they spend in California, it's a very difficult state. I was about to say country. Can you believe that? Maybe they should be their own country, Greta. To win as a Republican in a statewide election, they would have to have a very strong candidate that would be able to attract the independent voter, attract some of these Democrats. I don't know if Steve Hilton could do that. We'll see what happens on the Republican primary side. But I think for the Democrats, looking at these videos, looking at her responses, this is not new. She is, I think, one of the most tainted politicians in California. I don't see how she can win. She's gonna. It looks like she might win the primary, but it's still.
I don't know how
tricky.
When a candidate embarrasses himself. We've seen so many political candidates embarrass themselves, but they don't leave the race.
No, I mean, we have the case with Jane Jones, who is running for Virginia Attorney General, coming out with these, I think, very dangerous comments, basically saying that he would shoot the children and the Speaker of the House, who happens to be Republican. He's not getting out of the race. I think this is a huge problem for the Democrats. It seems to me like they're promoting some sort of political violence. In the case of Katie Porter, I just think from a mental standpoint, she just is incapable of running the state of California.
Oh, I asked for my do-over. You're gracious.
Love it.
Thank you.
I'm glad
Mercedes was
today.
right. I hate it like that. Mercedes Schlapp, thank you very much. And she'll be back at 10 p.m. on The Right Squad. And we have some breaking news. New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted by a federal grand jury. This is according to multiple reports. James has been indicted on a federal fraud charge. The fraud charge is allegedly related to mortgage fraud. The indictment was sought by the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. That's the same U.S. Attorney who brought an indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. And with all indictments, they are not evidence. We'll have to see what happens. Coming up, what is Putin afraid of? Zelensky has an idea. That when the record continues.
My employees and I want to thank all of you at Newsmax for your continued support of MyPillow. It's because of you and the grace of God that we're making it through. And to thank you, we're bringing you the best offers ever. Get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regularly $119.98, now only $29.88. Our My Towels are finally back in stock. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. Towels that actually work. What a concept. And for the first time and the only time ever, you're going to get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code when you order today. Inventory for these offers are extremely limited, and once they're gone, they're gone.
3, 2, 1.
I found Tunnel to Towers just through a TV commercial. I was like, oh, I wonder if they help out injured first responders. So when the Towers did reach out, it was awesome.
Men and women like Jay Youngblood, who served their country, are so deserving of their independence and the ability to take care of their children and provide for them. And that's what the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is doing when we give them a house.
Tunnel to Towers shows there's still humanity out there. Please donate $11 a month to t2t.org.
Derriere, caboose, booty, badunkadunk. No matter what you call it, if you have hemorrhoids, your tushy is no laughing matter. So don't use a cream that treats your rear end like a joke. Get serious relief with Recticare Advanced Hemorrhoidal Cream. Recticare Advanced is seriously effective with 2 powerful medicines for rapid dual-action relief, soothing the uncomfortable swelling, itching, and pain of your hemorrhoids. For serious hemorrhoid relief for your buns, get Recticare Advanced.
Hi, TV Genie.
What do you want?
I wish I could find my shows easier.
I wish my primetime TV was automatically recorded.
I wish I could record more.
Well, I can't do any of those things. So here, I swapped your outfits.
Switch to Dish. Get voice control, automatic primetime recording, and more recording power.
You're welcome.
Switching from DirecTV satellite to Dish can save you over $300 in your first year.
We should get Dish.
In every pour of 4547 Patriot Edition whiskey, you taste more than whiskey. You taste freedom. Crafted to honor the patriots who built this land, protected by the warriors and the first responders who guard it every day. Forged in the makings of history on the road to a greater tomorrow. Now the fastest growing new whiskey in the country. Raise your glass to tradition. Raise it to heroes. Raise it to America. Built by patriots, for patriots.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
Makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Call the number on your screen.
Call 800-816-8113.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has a confession. Today, Putin met with the leader of Azerbaijan, and Putin admitted to the leader that Russian air defenses were responsible for downing an Azerbaijan airline plane last year. 67 people on board that plane, 38 were killed. Putin said Russia fired missiles at a Ukrainian drone, and then those missiles exploded near the plane. The jet was set to land in Chechnya, but instead it crashed in Kazakhstan. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has some words for Putin about the current state of the war. In a post on X, Zelensky writes, quote, "The head of Russia is personally afraid of a ceasefire, to move from full-scale war to a ceasefire and then later restart a full-scale war. That's not easy for them." Zelensky also said it is, quote, "certainly not easy with those countries that are still shaking Putin's hand today. That's why, for now, he chooses war," end quote. Zelensky also talked about the Gaza peace plan. He thanked President Trump for his leadership, And Zelensky says he hopes there will be peace in Ukraine, too. Former Prime Minister of Ukraine, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, is here. Nice to see you, sir.
My pleasure.
People think the war started in February of 2022. This war started in 2014 with Crimea?
Correct. I took the oath of the office as a prime minister the day the Russia illegally invaded Crimea and occupied it.
Why was it so quiet? Why didn't the world respond?
Well, that's the question, and that's actually the reason why Putin launched a large-scale war against Ukraine. The world was deaf to what Putin was saying in 2007. He was very clear at this notorious Munich Security Conference when he said that the biggest disaster of the past century is the collapse of the Soviet Union. So the guy wants to restore the Soviet Union. So he wants to restore the sphere of interest. And he wants to go after the United States and after the Western-led US Pax Americana order. And he's not the only one.
Well,
China supports him.
I always hate to be an alarmist, but he started with Crimea, then he goes into eastern Ukraine, then he's got drones and everything going, flying in airspace in Romania and Poland, and he's going farther west. I mean, nothing's happened to invoke NATO Article 5, but he doesn't see. There's no sign that he wants to stop.
Well, there is only one way to stop him: to fight like hell against him. This designated war criminal understands only the language of strength. And I believe that the United States president, he is very clear saying that Ukraine can regain its territory with the help of NATO and the European Union. And I do believe with the help of the United States. Because what your president have done with the Gaza plan, it's amazing. It is miraculous. It's like, to circle the square. I hope that we can reach similar result. But once again, Putin understands only the language of strength. And we desperately need these
I think President Trump has had a change of mind. At first, like when he invited President Putin to Anchorage, I think he was hoping they'd get some deal and there'd be something. But I think Putin spun him then. But I'm grateful for President Trump trying to talk dialogue. And I think he's now come around to more of supporting Zelensky in Ukraine because he sees Putin as someone who just will not stop.
I fully share your take. I believe that the President of the United States acted in a good faith. So he believed that Putin is to make concessions. But instead of making these concessions, even despite the fact that President Trump rolled out the red carpet, limo sharing, he actually brushed off his hand that the president extended to the Putin. And your president has realized that, look, it is just wrong, that Putin wants to humiliate the United States of America, which the president of the
What's his big deal? I mean, what's in it for him?
For Putin?
For Putin, yeah. I mean,
because Putin and China and North Korea, have you seen this picture when they celebrated the 80th anniversary of the victory over the Imperial Japan in China?
Yeah, I saw them.
So it was an amazing show of dictators, totalitarian regimes, pariahs, and lunatics who are fighting against the very values of the United States of America. They are not just going after us. They are going after you, after your security, after your economic prosperity, and after your leadership position.
There are a lot of American people that have war fatigue, and a lot of people who think we have enough problems here not to spend money here. So how do you convince the American people, because they then talk to their members of Congress, who then authorize the money if we weren't shut down, of course, what is the argument to the American people that they should really care about this?
Well, you've mentioned the war fatigue. Even in Ukraine, we don't have the war fatigue, despite the fact that we are every single day sitting under the drones, shellings, missiles, and Russians are killing, torturing, raping Ukrainians.
And missing children. You forgot the children. Kidnapping the children. You forgot the children.
Thousands of Ukrainian children, thousands of, and I do respect First Lady who actually raised this issue. So in terms of the financial support to Ukraine, this is the best ever investment into your national security. And I will try to tell you why. So you've allocated around $80 billion. So I buy that president says it's around $300 billion. I always share the same take as your president. But 2/3 of the money that have been committed to Ukraine, you know where they left? In the United States. So you revamped your stockpiles. You invested into your military-industrial complex, you've created an additional jobs, you've got new taxes, and you've actually made a new cutting-edge technologies. Due to that very investment, Ukraine severely degraded the Russian land forces. Due to that very investment, you've learned a new type of warfare that is happening on the Ukrainian soil. Due to that very investment, you actually revamped your entire stockpiles. Due to that very investment, Ukraine degraded one of the biggest enemies, and you haven't lost anything.
Have you ever met Putin? Been in the same room with him?
Yep. For the first time, I had a face-to-face meeting with Putin in 2005. At that time, I was.
What do you think?
So it is a very foxy, cunning, smart. He's not an idiot. KGB operative.
Well, that's what he was. A KGB
and
operative.
Yeah. You know, he reads you. He conducts a kind of sniff test, and in case if you back down, he's going to jump on you. In case if you push back, he's to start to listen to you. That's his modus operandi.
Former Prime Minister Yatsenyuk.
So kick back him.
Okay, nice to see you, Mr. Prime Minister. Nice to see you. Thank you. Hope you come back. Enjoy the United States while you're here. And coming up, sometimes a snack is all you need. Up next, footage showing someone really letting loose. That when the record continues.
It's true. I am an America First, liberty-loving Latino. That's why I know this country is worth fighting for. That's why the Chris Salcedo Show will always tell you the truth.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.
Is Pilates for you? Well, this is Club Pilates, and we think it's for everybody because that's the point of Pilates, to feel strong and balanced and good. Exactly. Everybody Club Pilates.
Every DR Field and Brush mower gives you the power to do more. More power, more maneuverability, and more features. With more choice, get ready to do more this season. With a 2-year warranty, free shipping options, and more. Scan the code or visit drpower.com today to shop the sale or find your local dealer.
Falls are the #1 cause of injury to senior citizens. Falling down stairs can be disastrous. Acorn Stairlifts has the solution. Just don't fall. Sit, relax, ride with an Acorn Stairlift, the world's leader in stairlifts. That's right, don't let limited mobility keep you from going up and down your stairs, even outside. Call Acorn Stairlifts now for a free information kit and no obligation quote. Now you can safely ride with your Acorn Stairlift.
Now I don't have to worry about him climbing those stairs anymore.
And our Acorn Stairlift was very affordable. Our Acorn Stairlift is definitely more affordable than moving.
The Acorn Stairlift has a padded seat and backrest for maximum comfort. It easily folds up for access to the stairway. 5 safety sensors stop your Acorn Stairlift if there is something in the way. And it even runs during power outages.
I am king of my castle again.
You'll be working directly with the world's leader in stairlifts. That's right, there's no middleman. Acorn's trained technicians professionally install your stairlift directly to the staircase. In most cases, in 2 hours or less. There's no need for special construction. We don't leave until you're completely comfortable using your Acorn Stairlift.
Don't risk a serious fall going down the stairs.
I was really surprised at how little it cost.
Call for your free no-obligation information kit and quote from Acorn Stairlifts. Just don't fall. Safely ride up and down your steps.
Give your life a lift with Acorn Stairlifts.
Call 1-800-908-4077 right now for your free information kit or visit our website today. That number again is 1-800-908-4077. Call now.
Sponsored by Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, the health of fresh food with the convenience of kibble. Visit drmartypets.com/TV.
How does the world's most trusted dog expert keep his own dog so healthy?
Hi, I am Cesar Milan. In my 20 years rehabilitating dogs, I've seen too many struggle with health problems that no amount of training could fix. Then I discovered it wasn't the dog, it was their food. Fortunately, I found veterinarian Dr. Marty's anti-kibble breakthrough.
Nature's Blend is packed with whole foods that are freeze-dried, locking in nutrients.
I saw remarkable improvements in my dogs within weeks.
Try Dr. Marty risk-free for 90 days. Plus, get a free gift when you call or visit drmartypets.com/Caesar.
This bear is not letting any food go to waste. Padgy, a sun bear from the Oakland Zoo, cleaned out an entire jar of peanut butter. And if you were thinking, wow, her tongue looks kind of long, you're correct. Sun bears have the longest tongues of all bears. Their tongues can reach up to 10 inches, and that is so they can gather food like reaching insects in tight spaces, cleaning out honey from beehives, and in this case, getting every little bit of peanut butter out of that jar. The Chris Salcedo Show is up next. Have a great evening. Stay with Newsmax.